The summer of 1863 was warm in Washington, and the windows of my office were open at all hours, and the air came in off the river smelling of horses and of rain that had not yet arrived. It was July. A candle was burning on the desk in front of me. I had a sheet of paper in my hand, and on it 8 lines I had been working on, off and on, for most of an afternoon. I was writing to a general, a good man, brave, well-meant, who had the week before let an army that should not have escaped him slip back across a river. I was distressed about it. I was angry about it. I had not been sleeping well. I read the lines through. I read them again. I picked up the pen, and on the corner of the paper I wrote, in a hand a little heavier than usual, "Never sent," or signed. I folded the paper twice and slid it into the right-hand drawer of the desk, where there were already a small number of others a great deal like it. And I sat there for a moment, in the warm yellow of the candle, the room very quiet, and I felt the particular relief of a letter not in the mail. I want to begin there, if you will permit me. I want to begin with a letter you have never read. I was born in 1809 in a one-room cabin in Kentucky, in a part of the country that had no use for a man who could not split a rail, and not much use for a man who would rather read than work. I was, regrettably, more often the second sort than the first. My father could not read. My mother died when I was 9. My stepmother, and I will name her gladly, Sarah Bush, put a hand on the back of my head one day when I was about 11 and told me I was to keep going. I did, mostly because she said so. I borrowed every book I could borrow. I walked, I am told, considerable distances for them. I read by firelight, which is a thing that ruins your eyes and is worth it. When I was 19, I went down the river. I had hired on as a hand on a flatboat carrying produce to New Orleans. I saw a great many things on that trip, most of which were what a young man expects to see. The great brown water, towns I had never imagined, men shouting in languages I could not place. And I saw one thing in New Orleans I did not want to see and could not look away from. I will not describe it to you. You know what it was. It changed the rest of my life. I did not know that at the time. I knew only that I had seen it. Years later, Springfield, Illinois, a country lawyer riding 23 counties of circuit court, a saddlebag of paper, and a horse who knew the road better than I did, I learned the one specific thing the law teaches a patient man. An argument is not won by being right. It is won by being patient enough to let the other side finish. The presidency was not a thing I sought. It was a thing I was talked into by friends who saw me more clearly than I saw myself, and by an opposition who could not agree on anyone better. I went to Washington in 1861 with a stovepipe hat, a wife, and 3 sons, and the strong suspicion that I was the wrong man for the work. The country, by the time I got there, was already pulling apart at the seams. Now, the years that followed. The school books have them. The witnesses are still arguing among themselves about how it all went, and they have a right to. I want to talk to you about a smaller thing. I want to talk to you about that drawer. A letter to a general who had failed at a moment that would have ended things. Folded, never sent. A letter to a senator who had taken to insulting me in print. Folded, never sent. A letter to a member of my own cabinet whom I had caught maneuvering against me, very busily, in a corner I had not thought to watch. Folded, never sent. Now, I will tell you a thing about myself, because if I do not, someone else will, and they will tell it less generously than I am going to. I had a temper. It was a real one. I did not always like it. I felt the cuts of other men, and they felt the cuts of mine. And there were nights I lay awake at the desk because I had said the thing I had been so careful not to write. I found, I once said to a man, that an angry letter is the truest thing a man writes in a given afternoon, and the least useful by the next morning. I will give you a small thing. Stanton, my Secretary of War, a difficult man, and I loved him, once came to me red in the face about an officer who had crossed him. I told him, write the man a good, furious letter, and put in everything you have, and call him every name you can think of. He did. It took him most of an hour. He was very pleased with it. I read it through, told him it was excellent, and then I told him to put it in the drawer. I want to say something now about a thing harder than the desk drawer. I had always thought slavery was wrong. I had not always thought it was the only question. I thought for a great many years that it was one of the questions, and that the work of the country could be done while leaving it for another generation to settle. The war taught me otherwise, slowly. The war is a hard teacher and not a fair one, and I will not pretend I came out of it wiser than the men who taught me. I came out of it with what they had given me, which was the recognition that the thing I had seen on a New Orleans afternoon when I was 19 was the thing the country had been quietly arguing about ever since, and that the argument could not be left for the grandchildren. I came late to seeing it whole. I saw it fully too late to claim wisdom, but I saw it. In 1863, I had set my name to a proclamation declaring free those held in the rebelling states. It was a war measure. It was also the truest thing I had yet put my name to. I knew it would not be enough by itself. I knew the work of writing it into the country's bones would have to be done by men wiser than me after I was gone. I made the down payment. And then, at the end of a second term I had not particularly wanted, after a winter of writing in pencil on whatever paper was at hand, I wrote a letter that did get sent. I read it aloud in a drizzle on a March morning in 1865, and the sky broke open just as I began. I will not recite it to you. You can read it. I will tell you only what was in it. With malice toward none, with charity for all. 8 words. They are what the unsent letters had been working for all along. Now then, what has come of it? The habit, the years on the desk, the years on the country. I have had some time to think on it. Here is what comes back to me first. I will tell you what I am told happens still. Somewhere, every night, in some quiet room, a man sits alone at a desk after a quarrel he did not want to be in, and he writes. Not what he means to say, what he wants to say, which is a different thing. He reads it through. He folds it. He puts it in a drawer of his own, where there are already a small number of others, a great deal like it. In the morning, he speaks the kinder thing instead. I do not know that man. I know what he is doing. He is holding his small world together, in his small hour, in his small way. No one writes a poem about the unsent letter. That is the sign it is real. It is older than I am, the habit. I had it from a man on the circuit who used to say the lawyers who lived longest were the ones who wrote their second letter before they sent their first. He had not invented it either. Old judges know it. I have watched a farmer put a hammer down rather than swing it at the wrong moment, and I have rarely seen a quieter man. The thing has been here a long time. It only had its turn with me. I just had the luck to do it in a public seat, at a moment when the country was deciding whether to keep speaking to itself. I call the discipline a small thing. It was, I think, the largest small thing I ever practiced. A judge knows what I mean. He calls recess, and the room cools, and the men who were 10 minutes from saying a thing they could not unsay come back the next morning able to make their point without it. Some of them, in fact, do not make it at all. The morning has talked them out of it, gently, the way mornings do. What you don't say is also what you build. I learned that the way a man learns anything worth knowing, a little at a time, and almost always by being wrong about it first. Every age is tempted by the hot answer. We recognize the temptation. We have, I am told, a great many more ways to give in to it now than we did then. I will not name them. We know what they are. The shape of the temptation does not change. Neither, I am sorry to report, does the shape of the answer. Write the heat down. Read it through. Wait the night. Read it again at a different hour, when the candle has burned down a little, when the sleep has had its chance to be the wiser party at the desk. We all know the feeling of wanting to fire the message off. We also all know, if we are honest with ourselves, which is a thing we manage with surprising consistency when no one is watching, the morning we were grateful we did not. What holds a household together is what holds a country together. The patience of a person who has learned that being right and being heard are two different jobs, and that the second one takes longer. I came to think of the country in those years as a kind of trial. Both sides have witnesses. Both sides think they are right. The work of holding it together is the work of listening longer than is comfortable. It is not glamorous work. It is rarely the work that gets remembered. It is what makes the rest of it possible. And I do not say country only. The same trial happens at every kitchen table where two people who love each other have stopped speaking for a week. It happens in classrooms. It happens in workshops. It happens between old friends who have arrived at a hard place and are deciding whether to wait the night and try again at breakfast or to send the letter that closes the door for good. The drawer is a small thing. The drawer holds the room together. December of 1863, a White House room, late evening. The war still on, but the worst of it, though I do not yet know this, behind me. The candle is low. There is a fire in the grate. Tad, my youngest, who should have been asleep 3 hours ago, who should be asleep 3 hours ago every night and is not, as a matter of policy, is on the rug with Jack. Jack is the turkey who was sent for our Christmas dinner and whom Tad pleaded for so passionately yesterday afternoon that I wrote out a pardon on a card and gave it to him. Tad is asleep on the rug. Jack is asleep beside him. Neither one is obeying any rule the household ever set. The only formal pardon I ever wrote with no second thoughts was for a bird. Mary is across the room with a book she is not reading. She has lived with a difficult husband long enough to know when to leave him alone with his pen, and she has done so. She is wonderful at this. She is wonderful at many things. I have not always been wise enough to say so. I am happy in a way I am not used to being. I do not entirely know what to do with the feeling. I am sitting with it the way a man sits with a quiet hour after a long one, gratefully, and not asking it to last. I will tell you what I wanted, really, the whole time. Not a statue, not an office, not a phrase to be carved on a wall. A country in which a child could grow up not having to fight the war I had fought. A few quiet years I would never quite get. If you are listening to me in the evening, in your own quiet, let me leave you with this. I wish you a drawer for the letters you do not send. I wish you the patience of the morning. I wish you a friend who says nothing until breakfast. and I wish you a country worth being patient for. That is everything I have.